Alright, so we are live. One time for my niggas, two times for my niggas. This your main man, Daddy Shiva. Um, Kali is off camera over there, fucking with cards and stuff. She's gonna say things too, but she doesn't want to be on
Hello.
camera. There she is saying stuff. Alright, so this is the Tantric Techniques tutorial webinar. Before we even get into this, my allergies are acting wild, so if I sneeze like crazy, just give a young boy
Bear
a
with me.
second, bear with me as I explain these goddamn techniques and what it is that we're actually trying to do. All right, but we wanted to bring this forward and present this to the people so that way you guys could have at least a basic understanding of some of the primary techniques that go into tantric alchemy, I guess you could say, um, and really begin to utilize them and integrate them and open yourself up to the higher states of awareness that these techniques actually bring to us. All right, so um, we're going to go over four techniques in this particular video. Of course, we'll add on to this as we, go on through time. We'll make more videos explaining different techniques. I really just wanted to kind of give you niggas just a general, um, not even a general, but a specific look at one section of techniques. So that way you guys could begin to work with it, utilize it, all that, without being like overwhelmed like shit. Because just explaining these four techniques
Yeah.
already is.
Because reading through bigger
Oh
tantra
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it takes time. It's not an easy read.
Yeah, all of these techniques that we're about to utilize are coming from Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, and it takes mad time to read. It takes mad time to actually like own the information, so it's not just about reading it and then repeating it to you niggas. I was really trying to like own this information.
Keep it simple.
It's so that way I can simplify it in a way that, what I'm saying, everyone could understand it, everyone could use. So that's what we're dealing with on that regard. That's what we're trying to do here today. So like I said, we're going to go through these four techniques. All four techniques are going to be breathing techniques on that level. Then we'll, as we transition into greater and higher things in probably the next installment of this shit, we'll do other kinds of techniques based on other things.
This is the foundation though. This is
Yeah, the foundation is going to be these breathing techniques because they are literally the first four techniques that are spoken of in the Vigyan Bhairav Tantra text. So that's what we're dealing with. That's what we're gonna do. But first, I have to explain, the techniques of Shiva, which is exactly what Tantra is. These are the techniques that he uses to attain that ultimate state of consciousness that is most closely associated with him. You see what I'm saying? He is beyond life and death on that level, while still being on Earth. So he's fully enlightened, fully aware, fully conscious, but yet still within the body, within and expressing that full state of consciousness through the body. So these are the techniques that he uses in order to open up that state of awareness. So that's what we have to first understand and define Tantra as. All right. So according to the ancient tantric texts, the ego, which is the sum total of all processes of which we are conscious of and have conscious control over within our experience, which is not that much. Let's keep that 100% in mind. What you are conscious of and what you have conscious control over within the ego, very limited. All right. So not only hold on, wait, is this fucking things done turned off? All right. So yeah, like I said, the ego is the sum total of all the processes of which we are conscious of and have conscious control over within our experience, not only physically, but also emotionally and mentally as well. This means that the ego, as a conscious entity, ranges from the basic survival instincts to the individual personality and sense of identity. Thus, the ego is equivalent to the conscious mind. I have to explain all this before we get into this because if you didn't watch the Enigma of the Ego video, these things become highly important because that whole video was based on tantric understanding. You see what I'm saying? That whole video was based on what I know about the conscious mind from psychology and then what I know about the conscious mind from Tantra. You see what I'm saying? I brought them together in that video. So we have to explain all of this just so we can further the point that we're actually about to make. All right. So thus the ego is equivalent to the conscious mind. And because of this, it is not innately benevolent or malevolent, right? So it's not good or bad, right? It actually isn't either. It doesn't deal with either. It's just the vehicle that you function through consciously. That's about it. It is simply the central axis that we consciously operate through, the light that is supported and given birth to by the unconscious mind. So, this conscious mind, the ego, as we understand it now, is just the sun.
Mm-hmm.
The mother would be the unconscious mind. All right. We understand that the ego is limited. That would mean that the mother, the unconscious mind, is unlimited on that level. This is just a small piece. The ego is just a small piece, a portion of what the unconscious mind actually is in totality. These are the things that we have to understand as we begin to really move through and utilize and explain the techniques of Shiva. All right. So according to the Tantric text, the ego, which is all the shit that I just said 2 seconds ago, the conscious mind, right, is never in the present moment because it is a mechanism of desire and survival. It's always looking for something outside of itself. It's always looking for means of survival outside of itself. Thus, whatever it is looking for is somewhere out there, not here, somewhere in the future. It's always going to be looking for something in the future or in the past, because if you're not looking for it ahead of you, then you feel like you've already missed it somewhere behind you. You see what I'm saying? So this is what the ego actually does. This is how the ego functions. It does not exist in the present moment. It projects itself into the future that does not exist, and it projects itself, or it does not exist yet, and then it projects itself into the past, which is already gone. It's already moved by. You see what I'm saying? So it's never dealing with the here and the now and what actually is. All right. So really want to keep that in mind when we're dealing with this. The ego is always seen as seeking or asking for something outside of itself, and usually that object of desire is in the past, that which is already gone, or the future, that which does not exist and has yet to come. Thus, the ego is always projecting itself into the future and the past. All right, it lives there. The ego is a vehicle of projection. All right, and let's also keep this understanding in mind that the ego is an inbuilt survival mechanism, an inbuilt desire mechanism within the body. Right? All you niggas keep talking about your human or your spiritual beings having a human experience. Understand that the ego is a part of that human experience. It is not the true spiritual being. All right. Let's keep that in. Let's keep that in mind as well. All right. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the ego, and understanding the fact that it does not concern itself with the present moment. It does not concern itself with what is, because it is always thinking and doing. All right. The reason the ego is always thinking and doing is because the ego does not know and it is not. All right. It knows not and it is not. That's what the soul does. You see what I'm saying? The soul is being. So it knows and it doesn't need to do because it is. You see what I'm saying? Whatever needs to done, it is already doing. You see what I'm saying? It has already accomplished that. All right. So this is what we have to understand. Now, the reason this becomes important is because the truth is always here in the present. All right. The truth is always here in the present. This is what niggas are gonna have to understand before we even start dealing with any of these techniques. The truth exists. Your conscious mind, your ego, and its limited state of awareness may not be able to see the truth at all times. It may not be able to interact with the truth at all times. It may not know the truth at all times. But the truth is always here, because the truth is Ma'at. Ma'at is the embodiment of the Kemetic archetype of magic. All right? Always present. Universal order is always present, even in the chaos. Because out of chaos comes order, which would mean that order had to already exist inside of chaos in order for chaos to give birth to order. So Ma'at is always here. The truth is always here. The universe is always in order. The universe is always following universal law. The law will always exist. If anything were outside of universal law, it couldn't exist. It wouldn't be here. It wouldn't be. You see what I'm saying? Because these are the primary laws that govern the most fundamental beings in reality, or the most fundamental states of awareness. This is what does it. It's the truth. It couldn't be true because it wouldn't exist. It would be a lie. It would be fictitious. It would not be. But if it exists, it's real, which means it is a part of the truth. So the truth is always here. The truth is universal. This is not shit that I'm gonna really go deeper into because Ma'at. Everything's governed by Ma'at. Everything. All of the seasons of the universe, even the different states of creation and dissolution, all of that shit's governed by Ma'at. So Ma'at is always here. Ma'at is always present. When Ra came out of the primordial waters of Nu for the first waters of chaos for the first time, he came with Mahudi. They are always by his side. All right. Ma'at is the truth. Tahuti would be the perfect observer of truth and the one that records what it is that he's observing without judgment. Does not project onto it. Unlike the ego, which is always projecting onto the universe and trying to tell the universe what it is. Tahuti just observes, he watches, and he learns from his observation. All right. This is what we're dealing with. Life is very fragile. Ma'at is beautiful. If any of these god atoms that exist out here in the universe were to be removed from the equation, this shit would fall out of balance. This shit would out of order and nothing would exist because that's what chaos is, no thing. This shit would fall right back to chaos. All right? Understand that if oxygen didn't exist, none of this shit would be here. Carbon didn't exist, none of this shit could be here because all of these things are in a perfect equilibrium and that's why we get to experience anything. All right? Like I order already existed. Why order can be birthed out of chaos. If there were no order, we'd be right back to chaos. You see what I'm saying? Straight like that. So the truth is always here because truth is universal. And thus it is not something that can be achieved. So already right there, we already know that the ego and the way the ego operates is all projecting into the past and the future, right? The truth is always here in the present, be achieved in the future. So thus, in the ego search for it is always skipping right the fuck over it, always missing it, always ignoring it, always avoiding it, to be honest. All right. The true singular cause behind the infinite effects that we call reality. Can you stop moving? Reality. The truth is the eternal present because the truth is eternally present, always here. All right. Understand that you have to really take a deeper dive and look at like the Matrix. You see what I'm saying? Where Morpheus expressly tells Neo, saying, "Hey, you already made all the decisions. You made all the. You're here to figure out why. So all of this shit here, that's the effect. That's the aftermath of one primary and singular cause. All right, we're here to try to work our way backwards. I get on a certain level to figure out the cause behind the effect. Here's the issue: we identify ourselves with the ego. We identify ourselves with the intellect and the conscious mind. The problem with that, the ego operates within the effects and thus is always seeking and looking for the cause. It thinks that it's going to find the truth or the cause of all this shit somewhere in the future, or it thinks it has already missed the answer somewhere in the past. When in all actuality, if the ego, the conscious mind, were to center itself in the present, it would know the truth. It would be the truth. It would become aware of the truth. It would find having to look for it. You see what I'm saying? Really want to understand about this particular act of the techniques of Shiva. This is all about getting the ego, the conscious mind, to seeking things stop desiring things, stop looking at things outside of itself, and getting it to realize that all of the answers exist within. All of the tantric techniques are about getting into the realm, getting internal, getting into the darkness that creates light, that creates consciousness, right? In order to really see the truth that is always present and always existent. All right. So there was a quote in Vigyan Bhairav Tantra. I think it's from Lao Tzu. This one came from, but it says, "You cannot seek the truth. You can find it, but you cannot seek it. The very seeking is the hindrance." So understand that the very thing you up is the fact that you keep thinking that the answer to all of this is somewhere outside of you. It does not exist outside of you. You are the universe. You see what I'm saying? All of this here is a projection of what's going on inside of you. The heart is the earth. You see what I'm saying? This is the fire that shines the light. You have yet to act. You see the light, yet to figure out where the fucking light is coming from, and you keep looking for it with a flashlight, and you're in the daytime. That makes no sense. You'd have to go back into the darkness in order to find the original source of light that created all these things. The truth is always here. The light will always be right on top, always be here. It's about you becoming aware of it and being able to see on a greater level what is going on. All right. Um, the fear is always in the present, right? You, the one that's looking, is always in the present, but what you're looking for is always there ahead of you, somewhere in the future. All right. Oh, I don't have this now, so I gotta look for it somewhere. Oh, I don't have this now, I gotta go somewhere. I don't have this right now, I gotta go look for it somewhere. That's what the ego is, because the ego cannot see beyond the conscious mind. It is not aware of anything but the contents of consciousness. All right. So that means that it can't see the vast and infinite expanse of the potentiality that exists just below the surface, just below its own awareness. Therefore, it cannot understand that everything that it needs is literally right here, right now, and all it has to do is reach inside and pull it out. That would be very different. That's a very different state of existence, because now you're moving from thinking and doing to knowing and being. You see what I'm saying? Know the answer is within me, and I can be the answer that I'm looking for. Boom, I can pull it out because it already is me. The same thing I said about chaos and order. Chaos has to be order, because how could chaos produce order? How could order come out of chaos if chaos itself wasn't innately a form of order, different form of order than what we understand to be? You see what I'm saying? Light always existed, because how the hell could light come out of darkness if darkness itself isn't a form of light that we just don't understand? These are the understandings that come about when we actually study the tantras, when we actually really come in. And this is what all the tantric techniques are about. They're all focused on turning the conscious mind away from its seeking in the past and in the future, right? Turning it away from that and pushing it into and moving it into and making it aware of the eternal present, which is the truth.
So that's the main difference between Tantra and yoga.
Pretty much.
So Tantra is going inwards, worried about the background,
Mm-hmm.
whereas yoga worries about the foreground
What it
and
is
what's
that you
in
can
the
see in
light.
front of you. Exactly. That's the main difference. So you've been trained to project everything outside of you. You've been trained to look for everything outside of you. All right. When in all actuality, the real answers are here and present right now within you. You are just unaware of that. It is your unconscious mind. You know what I'm saying? Tantra is the art of becoming conscious of that which is conscious to you,
Being able to see in the dark.
being able to see in the dark. This is what turns the consciousness from a state of seeking into non-seeking, because in the book it talks about how the earth was already there in the void, covered in darkness, whatever the case may be. All right, I don't remember that fucking, but it's in the book. You see what I'm saying? It said the earth was already there. And then God said, let there, and then there was. And then the creation process of the earth began to happen. So it already existed as a potential, and through the creation of light, that potential be solidified into something that was apparent,
Mm-hmm.
something that and was seen. You see what I'm saying? It appeared to be real, right? So ultimately, what we're dealing with when we're dealing with the tantras is understanding that all of these techniques are moving, the one that you're seeking, right? Tapping back into your real consciousness, right? That is aware of all of its contents, not just the conscious mind, but also the unconscious mind as well. All right. Understand that the ego is not your consciousness.
You want the board?
I'm good. I can explain this about that. All right. So understand that the ego is not the true consciousness because it's not even everything within the conscious field. All right. It's just your personal pinpoint of awareness. All right. Or the personal pinpoint of awareness within this one body. The ego is only aware of this one body, and it's barely of this one body. You see what I'm saying? So really understand that there is the greater conscious mind, right? That we call the soul, that is conscious of not only this reality but also the unconscious reality as well. You see what I'm saying? We call it unconscious because from the ego like perspective and standpoint, we don't know what's over there. It appears like nothing. So we call it unconscious because the ego cannot exist there. But ultimately, consciousness is still there. You see what I'm saying? There has to be light in that darkness because how the hell could this light come out of the darkness?
Right.
Simple as that. Tantra really focuses on. All right. So this is what turns the consciousness from a state of seeking into non-seeking so that it can find the truth that always surrounds it in the unconscious mind. This shit is an iceberg of awareness. The ego is 10% of that iceberg. The conscious mind is everything is above the water that the ego could potentially become aware of. Potentially. But ultimately, the ego is just 10% of that iceberg that we can see. The higher conscious mind, you see what I'm saying? Everything above the water. The subconscious, unconscious mind is the other 90% of the iceberg that is under the water. And then understand that the infinite unconscious mind, the unconsciousness, would be the water itself, that which is holding up and creating the entire experience as we see it. That's what we're dealing with here. All right. So this is difficult to really master and utilize, just the fact that now your ego is going to start desiring and seeking state of seeking. This is where the ego gets very tricky. You see what I'm saying? This is why the ego is such a hard thing to defeat, a hard thing to kill or overcome on that level. Because now, instead of you just saying, all right, bet, now your ego's gonna be like, all right, shit. Well, now I need to figure out how to not desire things. Now I need to figure out how to get beyond survival. Now, which then pushes this shit straight into the future. Now you're no longer present. You're no longer. Now you're thinking, doing. And you see this issue. This is what Tantra is to break.
I find that when I am doing that, if I because my mind can easily wander
Mm.
and do that. Whatever I'm studying, I try to fully in submerge myself. So if I'm reading about something, I not only try to understand what I'm reading,
Right.
but I try to movie indulge my entire everything. I try
All
to
of your facts in it. Right.
yeah, I try to smell what they're doing talking about. I try to like
You're trying to
feel
become
it.
the
I try to
information
hear it. Yeah. So if you
instead of thinking about it and trying to do
exactly
something.
so when you are going through life trying to seek whatever truth, like just submerge yourself. Bless you. Like in all your senses instead of just your mind, because like you said, once your mind starts,
Turn that down a little.
once your ego gets involved, then it's not you pretty much defeat.
Mm-hmm.
But I find myself like basically just sensory, involve more of your senses, and that'll that'll help.
And that's exactly one of the main things that Tantra deals with. And we kind of addressed this in the first Tantric video where we talked about the Jupiter and Scorpio Tantric and everything. Talked about on these topics about Tantra is a state of like total awareness where you go into something really focusing in on it and trying to be it, become one
Listen, in order for you
whole.
to know, like you gotta
Right.
smell it, you gotta hear it,
You
you
have
gotta
to
taste it.
fuse with it on
Every,
all those levels, and that's exactly what we're trying to get into here. And being in the future that doesn't exist or the past that doesn't more, you see what I'm saying? Being right here in the present moment, you see what I'm saying, is what will bring you all the truth you need instead of thinking about where it is or where to find it or how to get it and all that shit. And then doing the most to try to get
right.
under, because all right, no matter what you do, you'll never get there. Be always ahead of you. You're always projecting in it.
Right.
It's literally a cosmic carrot just dangling in front of you. You're gonna keep running, thinking that you're gonna catch it, but you never will because it's always just out of reach. You're always projecting it instead of just stopping, taking the goddamn stick off and grabbing the carrot. You're too busy, caught up and trying to get the carrot that you don't even realize. Oh shit! It's connected to me by this pole, just like in the Wizard of Oz. It's like you could always go home.
Right.
All you have to do is click your heels 3 times. You're just too busy doing this other shit. You're too busy playing the game to realize that you could have just stopped and then stopped. Like it was really that simple. This is what Tantra gets you to understand, to really stop. It gets you into a state of stillness to where you realize, oh shit, everything is right here. I don't have to think about it and I don't have to do anything because I already am everything that I'm looking for. I'm just not aware of it yet. And this is to become aware of it. All right. So that's what I really wanted to explain on that level. That makes sense to you? I want to make
You
sure I'm not.
explained that well.
All right. I want to make sure I'm not rambling because that's all. Ego is always projecting itself into the future or into the past. It's always looking for something. It's always desiring something. All right. The truth does not exist in the future or the past because it is eternally in the present. The truth is the eternal present. Ma'at is the eternal present. You see, the truth of the universe is right here. This is real because it's true. You see what I'm saying? It may not exist forever, but that's what Tantra is trying to get you aware of, the part of you that exists forever, the part
And
of
it
you
may
that's
not
eternal.
exist in the way that you think, but
Exactly. But the reason why you're here is because shit, some part of you created this for you to experience. So it isn't fake, it's just temporary. And through you breaking out of this search for something, all right, and this is all right, basically, this is what I really want to explain. We run on seconds, time runs on seconds. So who's the first? What is the first? Clearly, you're never going to realize what was first, which is the cause behind that. And that's ultimately what Tantra is here to teach you. All right. So that's that part. If you get that, it's cool because even Vigyan Bhairav Tantra said, think about this shit intellectually, you'll never understand it. This shit will be difficult in general.
yeah,
You have to feel this shit.
yeah.
You see what I'm saying? You really have to see it in your own mind in order for you to actually get where it is that I'm coming from. So if you don't right now, that's
It's
fine.
okay.
Meditate on it. You'll get it soon enough. Or better yet, we're going to give you the technique so you can understand this direct. That's what Tantra is all about. Giving you the technique to understand this actually, but through direct experience of it.
Because, like you just said, it's not about the ego, what the ego understands.
Boom. The ego doesn't understand shit. It will never understand. The ego inbuilt survival mechanism within the body. It only lives as long as this thing lives. And it barely does. Because the minute you go to sleep, the ego's gone.
It really doesn't.
And it barely, you see what I'm saying? It barely does that. The ego's gone. You fall into a coma, the ego's gone. Your conscious mind disappears like that.
Nah, you can pass out in your conscious mind still.
I
Yeah.
mean, nah, that's subconscious awareness. That's a different thing. It's not the ego. That's a different thing. But ultimately, when you go unconscious, that shit. When you fall into a coma, that shit goes away. The ego will leave like the mind, the conscious mind will leave the body like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, clear. So yeah, like what you said. So when you are going to sleep, your conscious mind, subconscious mind, that
And now you're
also
activating subconscious, right? Oh shit.
about me moving.
Yeah. Anyway, but no, that's ultimately what it is that
Yeah,
we're dealing with. Is really
that's important to
understanding the
understand.
fact that more of who you are exists within the dark than what exists in the light. So you only trying to operate what's in the light is ultimately you playing seconds. You're playing in the game of time, and time will always win because it's project. It's second. It's gonna keep project. You see what I'm saying? Keep projecting itself in front of you. But if you were to tap into the first, you tap into the present where there is no time. It's eternal. Eternity is way different than what we associate time with. It's not here. It's not cyclic. It's not. It's just eternal. It always is, and it always will be. So wait, that's a hard concept to understand, just on its own. So understand that the ego runs on seconds. It is the effect. We're trying to get back to cause, the primary initiatory force that brings all of this into existence. So that way we understand how to play in seconds, but yet still be.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're trying to comprehend what Tantra this whole thing is about. And technique that we're going to use to accomplish this mission, right? This goal of playing in seconds while still being
You're about to
first
go into first technique.
is no, I'm just about to explain breath.
Oh.
See, you got to be present in the moment. Stop jumping ahead.
No, because the way you worded it made it sound like
No, I'm just no, because that breathing technique that's we're disseminating. You see what I'm saying? Is four different breathing techniques. So one of the main techniques that we can utilize, the best technique that we can utilize for understanding all of these concepts and really tapping into the power of the unconscious mind, the power of the soul, or the superordinate personality, depending on who you're asking, because Carl Jung would call it the superordinate personality, the capital S self, not the small self. The technique we will use is breath. Now, the word spirit comes from the Latin word spiritus, which means breath. So, like I said before, everyone's spiritual because you're all breathing. All right? The spirit of life, the animating principle of the universe. So, we all have life. We're breathing. You see what I'm saying? We're all in the Vedic tradition, prana is associated with the breath and can be defined as all cosmic energies that permeate the universe on all levels of existence and animate life. That would mean that sex is an aspect of prana, love is an aspect of prana, magic is an aspect of prana, and truth aspect of prana. All right? It's all a part of the divine breath. This is where I have to begin to or not even understand, this is where I have to begin to explain the neter neteru concept or the flagstaff. All right. So in the ancient Egyptian pantheon of things, the symbol that they use for the absolute creator, the absolute creative force, all of that shit, the neter neteru, the god of the gods, right? The symbol that they use is a flag. All right. Why a flag? Let's explain why a flag. Fixed point, the pole, right? It's fixed, it's stable, unchanging, ever the center, the pole. All right. Attach that pole, what you might want to call the periphery, or that which is around the pole, which is the circumference, I guess you could say. That would be the flag itself, or like the material. So that would be metal, right? that which is woven into existence. That's matter. That's volatile, of course, because the flag can move, but ultimately the only way that it can move is through a third unseen force, which is the wind, the breath, that mates the flag and causes it to move and wave, and that, that's what we're dealing with. So unchanging center, that would be awareness. Awareness always exists. Consciousness always exists, right? Regardless of whether matter is or not. So whether matter is in a state of potential energy or kinetic energy, awareness will always be. The wind starts low, matter takes life. You see what I'm saying? Matter begins to mate itself, and now we have things that we can see and interact. The of the universe actually becomes active. So this is what we have to understand in order to understand why it's so important. Because breath is the third unseen force that actually creates movement for the central pillar of awareness to notice.
It's like the essence,
Right.
the witness.
All right. There's the fixed point, volatile, the volatile fabric reality, and then there's that third force, which is also volatile, but it's unseen. So that's the difference with matter and spirit. Matter is volatile, but it's seen. Either it exists and it's moving around doing something, or it's in a state of potential and it's not doing shit. You see what I'm saying? Which is dark matter, dark energy, pretty much we're dealing with on that level, right? Once that dark energy gets to moving, you see what I'm saying? It turns dark matter into regular Newtonian matter that we can see and interact with. When it's not moving, it goes back to dark matter. But it's all reliant upon that third unseen force. The wind blow and reality exists. When the wind stops, everything stops. Nothing exists. And that breath is life. The breathing process is what creates life. Without the breath, there is no life. Therefore, breath and life are directly synonymous. You see, breath is the animating force. All right. Awareness will always be here. Consciousness will always be here. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not talking about the ego conscious. That's consciousness. We're talking about unlimited consciousness. Tahuti. Tahuti will always be here. Tahuti will always be observing. That's why I came out of the waters of chaos with Ra. Uh, Awareness will be there. There will always be someone observing, watching. Light will always be there. It may not be light that you can see, but light will always be there. It will always exist. Light as an energy. You see what I'm saying? Will always be there. It may not be in a form that you can understand. It may not produce anything, but energy will always. The truth is ever present. Universal order is always there. What brings all of this shit into manifestation, into a form that we can't understand? That's the breath. Without the breath, this shit all goes back to that dormant water of chaos state where literally no thing is happening. You see what I'm saying? So that's what we're dealing with. So from the moment we are born until the moment we die, we're continuously breathing. So that means that in between birth and death, the breathing process is the only constant thing. What is going on in between birth and death? Life is going on in between birth and death, which means that if everything else in reality is constant between the point of birth and death, you get older, your age changes. You see what I'm saying? It's never the same day twice. You see what I'm saying? Um, Cells are constantly dying, constantly regenerating self. You'll be mad, you'll be happy, you'll be sad, you'll be all of these things. But the one that remains constant during all these changes is your breathing, meaning your one birth and your one death within this particular body, right? If the one constant thing is breath, then breath is life. They are synonymous. There's no way to separate the two. All right. So that means that one of the most potent things that we can use in order to understand what life actually is, to step into the present moment, would be breath. All right. Because it is extremely consistent on that level. And without breath, there would be nothing here. Matter wouldn't exist. It would just be your awareness. There would be no play of life going. It'd just be your awareness. So understand that breathing is an unconscious act. It is an act of mind because you don't consciously control your breath. You don't have to think about it. It just happens. When you're sleeping and your conscious mind is gone, who's breathing for you? You see what I'm saying? When you're in a coma and your body still breathing for you when your ego's not around, when your conscious mind is in a state of rest or is non-existent or dead, I should say. It has to be your health. It has to be your soul that's breathing for you. That breath is coming from some unseen source. Just like how the wind is coming from unseen source, but yet it animates the flag. It gives to the flag. It gives movement to the flag. It's all right. It's the constant variable. While the breath may not always be there, one who is supplying the breath always has to be there. You see what I'm saying? We may not be able to see where the wind's coming from, but the force that is able to create there, whether it's windy or not. Yeah. The fact that it can be windy means that there's something creating said wind. So even when it's not windy, the potential for the wind to blow is still there because whatever's doing it, it's still there. All right. So this is serious shit. So your breath is what's actually connecting you to your soul and connecting your soul to your body. Okay? Your breath is also connecting your body, your soul, and your soul to the universe, and your body to the universe, and the universe. It's all one. All right. So understand, your ego does not breathe, does not control the breathing process. The same way the ego does not control the heartbeat, which is exactly what the breath ends up feeding. You see what I'm saying? The breath is used to take in oxygen, which ignites the fire within the blood, because that's what oxygen does. Oxygen burns. All right. So when we understand that ultimately the breath and the blood are working together, the heart are working together at all times. So the bridge between internal you and which is your body, this is a physical vehicle. The thing connecting you from the in to the external is the heart, because the heart shapes the earth. This all is projecting itself out. But what is going to connect your heart to the end fire? Hearth, so to speak, right? That fireplace where the actual energy of life and light is coming from. That's also the earth. I mean, that's also the heart, I should say, because that's what connects you back in. So this way, the breath is what's feeding that fire, air in order to burn. So and it's not you breathing. It's not your body breathing. It's your soul breathing inside of your body, through your body. It's the one causing this wind, this air to penetrate the body. All right. That's what we have to understand on that level in order to understand how these techniques work. All right. So there's a bridge between the body, the soul, the universe. You breathe in, you're taking the air from the universe into your body, feeding the. It then comes up and out through back into the universe. This is what's bridging all three of these things together.
And I feel like because you can do that consciously and unconsciously, that's one of the most valuable things.
Because you can't control your heartbeat
You
at
can't
all.
control your heartbeat.
At
You
all.
can't
That's
control
complete. And I've said
shit
that
else.
before. And I've said is the fact that you can consciously control your breathing if you to. You see what I'm saying? Matter of fact, it is the conscious systemization
Right.
of breathing. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? Tantra ultimately doesn't give a fuck about that. Tantra wants you to use breath as a way to turn inward because your breath goes inward. It goes to the
Right.
deepest depths of you and then it returns back to the surface and exits.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Like it's a bridge. It's like the bridge in between worlds
Right.
that
But
you
the
can
heartbeat,
walk on,
and you can walk on that
like
bridge.
consciously.
Boom. It's literally connecting the body, the soul, and the fucking universe. So if you want to go into the universe, breath. If you want to go into the body, breath. If you want to see your soul, breath. If you want to empower your soul, breath. You ultimately have no control over your heart. That's certain.
Yeah.
You you can't stop that.
You
Through
influence
the
it.
breath, you can
Right.
influence
Right.
the heartbeat,
But you
but
can't
ultimately you can't.
make
Nope.
it the same way you can make your like
Yeah, like I can't just speed this shit wherever I want to.
right.
I'd have to go through the breath in order to actually do that.
I think that just makes it a valuable
And
tool.
that's why it's the most valuable tool. Because through this subconscious force called breathing, right? Subconsciousness between
Right.
conscious and unconsciousness.
Unconscious it yeah.
I can tap into it a little consciously and get some more unconscious effect, but ultimately it exists between the two,
Mm-hmm.
right? So by using the
It,
subconscious force of breathing,
mm-hmm.
I can completely tap into the full power of the unconscious mind. And I can also tap into all of the power of the conscious mind. This is the medium between the two, right? So this is why the breath is so important, like you said, because it's the only way to utilize all of these different aspects of the mind on that level. So if the breath is broken, you are no longer in the universe. You can go a while without food. You can go a while without water. You stop breathing for 6 minutes, nigga. The damage is irreparable. You see what I'm saying? The minute you stop breathing, shit starts getting sketchy. Food, water, that's fuel for the body. That's what the runs on. You see what I'm saying? The spirit, the soul, that inhabiting that, it runs on breath. The minute you stop breathing, it can no longer inhabit this. It's the only thing connecting it to the body. So when you disconnect the breath from, you disconnect the soul from the body, it no longer operates the vehicle, which then means the way you're taught to breathe, the way this is on certain levels, ultimately disconnect you from soul to where you're pretty much dead, but still able to move around. I guess that explains why only 3% of our DNA is active. Because we're pretty much dead inside of this thing because we're not breathing right. The breath becomes highly important. All right. So since breath is always present in the universe, prana, right? In order for the shit we see here to actually be here, there has to be something animating all of these things. If there wasn't anything animating all of these things, there would be no thing to see here. We would be aware, there would just be no thing. So the fact that all of this means that the breath is working, the breath is ever present, as long as all of this is present. And even when it's not present, the force that creates the wind, the force that embodies the wind is still there. It's just not utilizing its power to create on that level. Boom. So since breath is always present in the universe, sees the breath as one of the best ways to access the present moment and the universal truth that resides. Boom. This is what we're dealing with. It's always here. It always exists. Breath is the root. That's why they displayed it to you as a flagstaff. Because pictographically, trying to show you, hey, in order for a flag to be extended and flowing in the wind, it have to be wind. There's some unseen force animating this reality. It's implied by the fact that we're here now. There's a fixed portion of experience, awareness. Will always be able to see, always be something to see, quote unquote, right? But if the wind wasn't blowing, we would see this. We see static, no thing, as in nothing would be manifested for this level of reality. But yet, and still, real would still exist. It would just be static. The same way with a TV station. When the sun's flowing, you get a fucking on your fucking TV. You see what I'm saying? When the signal breaks, it turns into static. There's no longer anything to see. It's just random information, pretty much. It's just quantum, which then goes to quantum physics, where they say it is your conscious observation of reality that converts quantum waves into particles. If you were not consciously observing this shit, it would all go back to quantum potential and nothing would exist. No thing would exist. But because you're here looking at it, here it is. You're the first, created the second, the projection. You're the one breathing life into this shit. Techniques in Tantra teach you how to stop feeding into this, how to get back static reality where you're no longer animating any of this shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then breathe life into whatever the fuck else you want. You see what I'm saying? It's teaching you how to back into that position first. Whatever you create second is actually more in line with what you want, with the
Mm-hmm.
truth.
Right.
Because clearly you have an issue with this shit. But the issue is the fact that you don't remember that you're actually more in control of this shit than what you're trying to be. You're trying to be in control, but no, you're not. That's the ego's problem. It's always thinking or being the controlling force. It's always looking to become something. It never is that thing that it's looking for. Without the wind blowing, the flag, the material time only exists because you are creating it in front of you. You're projecting in front of you. You've become so identified with what you've projected in front of you that you've forgotten that you are a projector. You're the one sending out you're the lights creating the shadows in front of you. You've casted this illusion on yourself. Teaches you how to break out of that illusion so that way you can remember who the hell you are, thus no longer desire anything down here. You become Tahuti again. You become the perfect observer. You got all of this in creating this reality in front of me. I am the law. I am the truth. I will always be present. The word was God and God was the word. Get it right. Till we step back from staring at the flag and really thinking the flag is real, understanding, oh shit, I'm the one blowing on the flag and making, you see what I'm saying? We're always going to be trapped in the particular cycles of this shit here. All right. This is where we get into the first four techniques, Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, in order to really begin to utilize the breath as this vehicle for not only interacting with the body and the universe, but also interact that which is beyond the body and the universe. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Radiant one. This experience may dawn between two breaths. After breath comes in and down, and just before turning up and out, the beneficent. Breath turns from down to up, and again as breath curves from up to down. Through both of these turns, realize. Or whenever in breath fuse, at this instant, touch the energyless, energy filled center. Or when breath is all out and up and stopped of itself, or all and down and stopped in such universal pause, one small self vanish. This is difficult, only the impure. That is the technique. That's the first four, actually. So these first four techniques are deceptively simple in nature because number one, it's not asking us to change how we breathe, right? And it's us to change when we breathe, all right? Like we said earlier,
Just
that's
doing
what yoga is for. It's the conscious systemization of breathing. And yes, that has very positive effects for all the same reasons we just listed above because breath is all of these. Breath is already all of this amazing. But Tantra is not concerned with your conscious mind. It's not concerned with that conscious systemization. All right. These techniques simply ask us to place our awareness into our breathing so that we can begin to become aware of a very powerful within our breathing process. All right. These techniques asking us to systemize consciously our breathing because Tantra to use breath as a means to go deeper into the consciousness, beyond the conscious mind, into the subconscious and unconscious. It is about turning yourself inward. It's not about gaining external effects, which is what yoga is using breathing for, to gain a bunch of external effects. Because, of course, breathing is analogous to the primary cause, right? Boom. So, we are usually aware of two components of breathing: the inhale, when the breath enters the body, and the exhale, when the breath is given back to the universe.
We don't identify the cyclic nature of it.
We really don't identify the center of it at all. We think about breathing as two parallel lines.
Right.
But here's the issue: parallel lines never touch. Breath touches.
They do. Right. And with those four techniques, that helped me. I was experimenting with them a lot. Being an extremely visual person, I would meditate
Mm-hmm.
normally to drop myself down into that trance alpha state or the in between things and visualize, step out of my body and watch myself breathe. So you breathe naturally, but you want to again awareness to your natural breathing. So if it helps to kind of force that body experience and to watch yourself breathe to catch the rhythm, that helps. And then adding a light to it. So sometimes I would just lay, not like an out of body thing, but just lay and imagine a light getting brighter, going up. Like when you inhale, imagine the light trailing up your center and getting, and that'll help you track your breath if you're more visual person. But you really want to focus on the feeling of where it turns from the and those two not dead zones but dead and life zones. Um, Light helps visualizing it, but the main thing is that you don't force it. You don't want to change your breath. You do want to breathe from your diaphragm. So if you're not used to breathing deep when you're training and you're preparing yourself to go into the trance and practice these techniques, you want to make sure that your stomach is rising. You want to inhale all the way down until you feel it in your stomach. So once you get that going and you can do it naturally, then that's when you want to like sink down and deep into meditation and then start to feel this. You want to have shallow breaths trying to do techniques. You want to take these deep breaths. Sometimes I also focus on when you through your nose, uh, feel it, visualize it as water if you don't want to visualize it as light. And when I would visualize water, I started to bless you. You good?
Sneeze for a moment.
Visualizing it as water helped me bring into the sensations of it sliding down your throat. Breathe, your breath does slide down your throat, and that's one of the turning points. So visualizing water as almost like you're drinking your breath, like how a fish would breathe. Visualizing that'll help your senses get in touch. Because again, it's mainly sensory. You don't want to think too much about what you're doing. You want to feel what you're doing. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
All right,
What helps
gotcha.
me.
All right, so y'all heard all that. Y'all utilize all of those techniques she just named. As we go through, a more of like why all of those actually work. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, like I was saying, these techniques are deceptively simple. They're not really teaching us to systemize the breath. They're teaching us to use breath as what it naturally already is, as a bridge between these different aspects of your consciousness: the universal mind, you, the mind and the body, which is the ego, and then the mind that transcends those two, which is your real mind. You see what I'm saying? So we are usually aware of the two aspects of breathing, as in the inhale and the exhale. Um, every exhale is seen as a death, all right, because the breath is leaving your body, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Every inhale is a rebirth, the re-entering the body. All right, it's penetrating the body again. All right, and bringing that life force back into it. Right, breathe out. That life force energy is pulling itself out of you again. All right, from of course the soul, because once again it's the soul breathing on that level. All right, so often overlook the third aspect of breathing that transcends the body and the universe, the aspect of breathing that transcends the death and the rebirth. The aspect of breathing is the spaces of time in which breath moving in any direction and touch thing.
And that's why I said the light would help you pinpoint that.
Right. That's exactly what all of these techniques are actually trying to help you realize is that point in time when the breath is not moving out, it is not moving in, but it is perfectly still, because that point there is the point that is in between death and birth. All right. The point that's in between birth and death is life. That is the breathing process. Breathing process, there is a point of time in which you can become aware of what is in between space where the real you exists at. This is the stillness that is directly correlated with that energy filled center of the true being. All right, that was in the technique itself. Energyless because, of course, it's pure potential. So you see any movement in it, so you don't understand the energy of it. All right, but it's energy filled the very same reason. It's potential energy. It's infinite potential energy, unconscious mind. Literally anything can be made manifest out of that space. But once it starts moving, again, it becomes kinetic, and now there is no longer energy there that can be utilized by it. All right. So it's energyless on that regard because your body can't use that energy. Once again, these run on food and water. You see what I'm saying? But the soul, the spirit that is inhabiting this vehicle, this body, it runs breath. So on that regard, energyless because the breath really doesn't feed the body like that. And this is one of the things that you're gonna have to understand as well. That breath does utilize, while the body does utilize breath, once the breath is cut off from the body's fucking
It's the
done.
life force. It's the animating
It's
force.
the animal
You
force.
know,
You see what I'm saying? It's not what keeps the body alive.
it's not what's making.
Yeah, it's really not that. It's just the thing that allows you to move around in this thing. You see what I'm saying? It's what connects the soul to the body to be able to control it. The way you need arms to drive a car. You know what I'm saying? It's the thing that's gonna, you know what I'm saying? You need legs to push the gas pedal and shit like that. You need a driver in order for the car to move around.
It's the motion
That's what I'm saying.
animating.
But ultimately, gasoline fuels the car. You see what I'm saying? You driving the car doesn't do shit for her. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Gasoline that allows the car to have the energy it needs. But ultimately, the driver runs on a different form of energy. You see what I'm saying? Doesn't you, yeah, you try drinking gas. Yeah, see how well that works out for you. This is the point we're making, right? It's energy because it's not energy for the. It's energy filled because it is the thing that takes the body and gives it a reason to move it. You see what I'm saying? But this is what we're trying to understand, right? So this third aspect of thing, this between breath, right? Once again, if the breath is not flowing, if it is broken, you're not in the universe. You're dead, right? The ego and what you assume the ego to be is dead. It just said in the fourth technique, when breath is all out or when breath is all in and stopped, in that pause, the small ego vanishes. Once the breath is broken, you are no longer there. So understand that you are constantly dying and being reborn throughout this whole journey. You have been overlooking the whole time because you're so identified with survival that you fear death and you no longer want to see that aspect of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The ego is completely aware of the fact that it is dying in between breaths. It does not get to live. It does not exist beyond death. It does not exist in those realms. It only exists in life. It only exists while the ego is powered, or the ego is only alive as long as the body is alive. Once the breath stops, the body is no longer alive.
Mm-hmm.
You still are. Your awareness is still there. That's the fixed point. That's the pole. When the breath stops, the flag stops waving.
Right. But it's still a flag with a pole on it.
It,
I mean,
hello,
it's still a pole with a flag on it.
exactly. So you'll still be aware of the body in between these breaths. You'll still be there, but the body's dead. Trust me. That's a break in the actual movie. The same way a movie right now is not one continuous thing. It's a bunch of pictures making and in between those is space where there's nothing.
Like
You
when you,
see, just like when you blink, it happens so quick that you don't notice it never happened. But
mm-hmm.
ultimately, for 1 second, you were completely shrouded in darkness, and you had no idea what the fuck was going on.
Yeah, but
And
just like with your breathing, you can do that with your blinking to
boom,
bring awareness to those life zones.
exactly. This is what we're dealing with. Really understanding the third aspect, because this is what is the center point. Because the ultimately comes to the center point, touches it, and then leaves center point.
Mm-hmm.
It comes back and it comes back. You see how it's delivering a message. Mercury, the god of the air, is delivering messages back and forth between this center point that is beyond death and rebirth, and then the body which is subject to death and rebirth. The first, second. You think your ego is the first. You believe, no, it's not. It's trailing behind this thing, this center point, this awareness that always seems to be present, even when the body's not, even when the mind is not. This awareness is still. That's why this awareness can breathe through your body without your ego having, because your ego is really just your motor instinctive brain. That's really it. Your animal self. You're in an animal body. The ego is just the intellect. At the most basic level, the ego is just the motor instinctive brain. On the higher level, the intellect. So your instincts, your intellect, your ego. There are still two more levels of reality above that, according to the tree of life, according to the Kabbalah. You have intuition, and then you have the soul. So understand that all of this shit that we're talking about with this one breathing technique, understanding space in between breath, how that space in between breath connects you to the unconscious mind, and how that unconscious mind is the one that creates all of this conscious experience. It is eternal, present, always there, it is always watching. Regardless of whether life is being animated or not, it is always there, it is always watching. All right? Understand that when there is no breath, there is no life. Moments between breaths, it is possible to become aware of what lies beyond death and rebirth. But these moments are so fleet, they're so short that we never realize. The aware of the gap that is between and beyond death and rebirth, you have mastered this technique. Straight like that. All right. So here's the part that we're gonna have. When I want to start this part off using a quote. When the breath touches your nostrils, feel it there. Then let the breath move in. Move with the breath fully consciously. When you are going down, down, down breath, do not miss the breath. Do not go ahead and do not follow behind. Just go with it. Be with it wherever it is at. Remember this. Do not go ahead and do not follow like a shadow. Simultaneous with the breath is always flowing between the first second.
Mm-hmm.
You
It's your awareness that is.
Exact. Thank you. Thank you.
That's why I said imagine as water helps you
This is
feel
what,
it.
because you have to be able to catch the whole thing. But the breath, the one that's bridging you to, is always traveling between them. The breath does not get ahead of itself. If it did, you'd hit like you have hiccups. You see what I'm saying? The breath trying to get it. You see what I'm saying? Your breathing will be fucked up if your breath was trying to get ahead of itself or staying behind itself. You have to move with it. You have to be present with it. You have to be right here with it. As it moves and you're present with it, you'll notice the spaces.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Imagine imagine your body water. It's still full of center, but once it gets to the peak is when I feel like when I realized I started to feel it more because it felt like I was drinking something because you bring that much awareness. And with visuals, you don't want to visualize too hard because then it's an ego thing, a conscious thing.
Yeah,
But these little visualizations will help you feel it more.
yeah.
Imagine it's water, you're drinking it. You'll start to feel it hit the back of your throat. The more you feel it, the more you'll be able to identify those zones.
There you go. When you're completely present with it, these zones, they become impossible to ignore.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But if you're just, oh, whatever, you can notice it because it's that quick. It's such a short time. It's literally seconds of time.
But once you start breathing with your diaphragm, you do give you more time
All
to
right, boom,
realize
and
it.
that's all right, and that's where we're gonna get into next. All right. So this is what to say: do not seek the gap between the breaths, because then you're pushing the shit into the
That's just
ego, and you're gonna push the shit into the future.
just focus on
One
feeling it
day
as
I'm
water.
gonna notice the gap between breaths. One day I'm gonna, and then you've already fucked it up. You missed it because is always right here. It's always here.
It's outside of you once you start looking
But
for
once you
it.
start looking for it, it's outside of you. Now it's external. Now you're feeding the ego conscious mind that projects things externally outside of it. You're stuck on it. You're no longer back in the heart. You're no longer back in the soul, the hearth. The yo, son, and it's wild that literally hearth is like both of those words together. The fire inside the earth, which is exactly what a fireplace is, which is what a hearth is by definition of fireplace. It's fire inside of earth. Right? So do not seek the gap but stress. Instead, focus on the entire breathing process from inhale to stop to exhale to stop to inhale. You have to focus on the entire breathing process, and the central space of stillness will become impossible to ignore. It's this neutral state where nothing is coming in or going out that allows us to transition between coming in and going. The same way a car must go into a neutral state to gears.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just jump from first to second.
Right.
That's how you grind gears and you fuck
but
up your
there is
transmission.
also a neutral gear. Like it's changing in a neutral, but then there's also that neutral that you can stick it in when you're trying to just push the car.
Ah, yes. Yes. All right. So there is this neutral gear where the car isn't do it's idling.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Car is in.
the car isn't it's idle, right?
Yeah.
This is and that word I, the fact that it starts with that I is very because that's because I in Roman numerology is one.
Mm-hmm.
So the first is one. All it is alone. There's no thing for it to interact with. But through the breath animates something for itself to interact with. The second. Once it's idling, there's no in breath, out breath. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to be. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing becomes the being. No thing is actually everything. Just all in one.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in one is itself. That's it. There's nothing else. I'm trying to understand things. If you're trying to think about this through your ego, through your conscious mind, you'll never understand them. That you just wasted $22, to be honest. But if you're really to breathe these techniques, to like really live them, you see what I'm saying? Understand, you'll catch on to it. Because literally it's
I like I said, even if you're not doing breathing, if you're breathing,
Blinking
it,
is the same way. Sex is the same way.
you can
Because
apply this
you
to
go in,
everything.
you reach the minimum depth, and you pull back out. You reach that maximum like pull out region
Mm-hmm.
before it
Before you
fuck up the
disengage.
whole, right, because what you want to keep a certain rhythm,
Right.
right, so you can't pull all the way out, that kind of fucks up the rhythm,
Right.
but you have to push in and pull out, push in and pull out. It's the same process. So understand, breath is a penetrative force. Breath is the divine masculine. Breath is consciousness. It is life. It is the light. Matter through the atmosphere that we can see the sun the way we do. So
Mm-hmm.
understand that the air is light. It is shu. Shu is the one that separates Geb from Newt. Newt being waters of abyss. Geb being the bottom of the earth. The one separating the two is Shu, the god of the air. That would ultimately mean the one that can bring Geb back to Newt would be Shu, the air. The one bridging between what is in heaven, the higher self, the soul, right? And what is on earth, the physical body, the ego. This is what we're doing here. Understand all of these things become very important because this is what you're trying to become aware of. The fact that is literally carrying you up and all the time. What you think is this continuous reality is not continuous. There's breaks in the reality. They just happen so that you're not aware of them. The same way how in a movie, it's also a bunch of still frames
Mm-hmm.
that are connected by that black strip, right? That they're in. You niggas have all seen movie reels. It's literally just a bunch of little pictures inside of this black strip. Tell me why you never see any of those black strips in the movie. You don't see any of those because it's moving so fast, it's changing so rapidly that you would never notice it unless you were to slow it down. And then you would notice frame, 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 frame. Matter of fact, Fight Club, that movie Fight Club, they explained that shit real well because they were like, yo, we could cut in a picture of a dick to this fucking thing and you'd never
You
see
never
it.
know.
You'd never know. It's the same thing with the unconscious mind. It could literally throw you a symbol and
That's why you gotta be watching. That's why you gotta be careful.
boom. This is exactly why. Because you'll just breathe it in.
Mm-hmm.
Just look, we out here search the bottom of the ocean. We trying to search the moon. We trying to look for all the, and we barely even are our breath, but we're trying to become aware of all this other shit. But understand that because the breath is so close, it's literally right under our nose. We miss it all the time.
Just like we miss our nose.
Just the same in front of our goddamn face. We miss it because it's happening so rapidly, so quickly. You see what I'm saying? It's so close to us that we actually can't see what it is. Because the minute you start putting something real close to your face, it becomes automatically blurry. You can't really tell what we're no longer seeing. Picture. We're too focused on the small picture of the ego, the small picture that the ego lives in. You see what I'm saying? Instead of understanding, hey yo, I'm actually just watching this movie. Not only am I watching this movie, I'm the one that in the projector to play. Stop this whenever I feel like it. Whenever I'm done watching it. This is what Tantra is back into. So this is what the breath is, that there's gaps in between the breath. Life is not continuous. You're actually, if it's continuous, death is continuous. You're constantly dying and being
On
reborn.
so many different levels. Your skin, perfect example.
All of
Your
these
hair.
cells are constantly dying. None of them are, they're constantly dying and shifting into a new life. They're being reborn. You call life, this shit is not continuous. It feels continuous because you haven't noticed the the little deaths, le petit mort. You have noticed the ecstatic nature of this shit, the orgasm, because that's exact French call this shit, the le petit mort. You have yet to notice the little deaths. Matter of fact, most people dissolve into their orgasms; they vanish.
Mm-hmm.
They're no longer there. They into it. Imagine if you could stay during that entire process.
Now you're cooking.
Now you're cooked. This is why we said what we said about sex being an aspect of prana, love being an aspect of prana, because all of these are the same one force expressing themselves in different ways. Death is an aspect of prana. Death is universal to all of us. We all die. We all go back into a state of consciousness after this state of consciousness is done. Matter of fact, even while this state of consciousness is happening, we're constantly returning to a state of unconsciousness to come back, constantly shifting back and forth between the two. But it's happening so fast that we see it. If we were to slow down and be present with ourselves instead of constantly thinking and doing and running around trying and actually just being, we would notice it, right? So as you expand your awareness of the gap between breaths, your breathing will naturally deepen without you constantly forcing it to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Because once again, this is
You
not
will
yoga,
become more
this is
relaxed.
Tantra. Yoga is conscious mind and your conscious mind, which takes fucking forever.
28 days, actually, for one thing.
For one thing,
Can't give it too much. Can't
you
give
see what I'm
it.
saying? And the conscious mind can only handle but so much at a time.
Yeah.
It's not like the
And then in
unconscious mind that's
increments,
infinite.
I heard that after 30 minutes, like your retainment goes down.
Yep. It gets hard to focus
So
for extended periods of time.
28 of 30-minute increments for 1 to 2 topics.
Your attention span is as literally attention span is as long as your breath is. That's it. This is really what we're dealing with. You niggas have the attention span of fishes for a reason. You're constantly breaking your attention, breaking your to go back to where you came from so that we can come here real quick. Because ultimately this shit's a sin. You've become unaware of that and thus you become unaware of yourself. Stop playing. You've become unaware of, that transition, that change, and thus you have locked yourself out of the awareness of that being that is at the central of all of this, the awareness that's at the central point of all, not the ego. The ego is just a central pillar of awareness in the conscious mind, but ultimately this goes beyond that which is conscious. Most of the use is dark energy and dark matter, shit we cannot see and cannot interact with consciously. So that means this universe is beyond the conscious mind. The truth of the universe is beyond because the truth encompasses all of this shit, not just what we're conscious of, but what we're also unconscious of. The ego within the body can only use the senses that the body has. And it's barely doing that because most of those senses are still unconscious to it. Ego can only see invisible light, but the whole entity is only 5 to 10 of what the universe actually is. So really understand all of this because all of this becomes important and you'll begin to notice this shit on the deep levels when you practice in this damn technique. All of this explanation is pointless. This is an initial understanding. Not what fucking Tantra is all. Go do the exercise.
Yeah,
Go
that's the
breathe.
best way.
That's literally, this is the best way to do. Go breathe. Use the visualizations that Mama Kali was talking about to be able to more clearly see the process going on inside of you because you are trying to see into the dark,
Right, and that's
which
when that
means you
light
have to
will
feel
help.
it. Boom.
But you don't want to keep that. Once you found what it feels like, you want to focus
On the
feeling.
feeling.
Don't attach yourself to the visualization. That's why it's like even giving it visualizing iffy, but it's helped me
The visualization will help you to feel
to
what it is
pinpoint
you
it
can't directly
because
see.
you're already feeling it.
You're already feeling it. You
It's
just want to
just
become more aware of that feeling.
yeah.
You have to put a little bit more light to it until you can really feel it, and then you no longer need the
You're
light.
literally
It doesn't ultimately earth existed in the darkness. Light just made the earth appear. It made apparent.
right.
Once you're aware of it, you no longer need the light because you'll know that it exists. You know that it's there. You need your conscious mind to be aware of it anymore because it's all there. And you'll just naturally do it. from the it'll be unconscious to you. What they've programmed into you now is like as you expand your awareness, the gap um as you expand your awareness of the gap between breaths, your breathing will naturally deepen. You don't breathe deep anymore. Afraid. We're scared. What happens when you're scared? You hyperventilate. Shallow breaths. You go into fight or flight. Everything starts.
Mm-hmm.
You got to make decisions now. Quick, 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 quick. I'm about to die. I got to think faster. I got to move faster. I got to, in order to survive. This is what the ego does. So you're in a society that's literally letting your fears at all to out of breathing back into that deep center point you are. Because you don't from your chest. Your chest never moves. Your chest is really inside a cage called the ribs. You see what I'm saying? So ultimately, you don't breathe from your chest. Your lungs may be in your chest, but you don't breathe. When you really take a deep breath right now, just what expands? Your chest doesn't go anywhere. You don't see my chest move. What do you see move? The diaphragm, the stomach, the navel, the abdomen, this whole region here expands out. And then when you breathe out, it contracts back in. So you're not breathing from your chest. You have been trained to from your chest because you're shallow breaths. And that's why you live a very shallow life. That's only concerned with material things. You're only breathing into the ego. You're only breathing and giving life to the top 10%. You're not breathing all the way down into the, you don't know how to breathe underwater anymore.
Breath of water to help you.
Yeah, see what I'm saying?
You feel
It maybe this guy, the nomos, the masters of the word, the ones that give reality through their words, were fit because they could breathe underwater. Thus, they mastered true spirit. They're breathing into the conscious mind, breathing below the water.
Mm-hmm.
They're breathing into the womb, which is exact breath goes. The navel. It touches the sexual center.
About that in wisdom.
We talked about
Because
that.
towards the end, I give a couple techniques and we talk about breathing as part of the orgasm.
Which is exactly why mut is not the mouth, but the mother and the uterus. Breathe to the womb. The breath of life, the mouth of God is in the womb. It is in the sacral chakra, the navel position. This is where the breath goes. Ultimately, like we said, the breath is penetrating the body. On that regard, the breath would be pata, the divine masculine aspect. Where does it go? It goes to the sexual center. It goes into the sexual organs. It goes to the navel. That is where Kundalini is. Sekhmet, the spirit of Ptah, enters the waters, the living waters of Sekhmet, and thus they produce the sun, Nefertum, that which is reborn from the Lord, reborn sun god. What is the heart, if not the sun? You see what I'm saying? Because ultimately the breath feeds the blood, which then feeds into the heart.
Mm-hmm.
All right. As you begin to utilize these techniques, you'll naturally begin to breathe deeper. You don't have to.
Right, because you're fucking conscious now. You're fucking with the unconscious mind. You don't have to think about it.
You're now trying to become aware of a certain part within the breathing. So as you're breathing, you'll start off normal. Maybe you do have a shallow breath, but the more you begin to do this, you're gonna find yourself breathing deeper and deeper into that core because you're trying to catch that space in between breathing.
Yeah, as I said, when you like before bed is the perfect time if you meditate before to drop yourself down in that relaxed trance state, so that you can become. Because when you're more relaxed, you naturally act.
Boom.
So, but like I said, you don't force it. You don't want to make a whole ritual out of it because then your ego it's excited for this tantra too. That's what you don't.
And it's seeking it. No, it's like, oh yeah,
Right.
I'm gonna have this. I'm going to have this. It's pushing it
Yeah.
into the future.
Yep.
instead of saying, yo, I'm
Do
already in
it.
tune with
Surprise
this
yourself.
experience. So as you expand your awareness of the gap between breaths, your breath will naturally deep without you consciously forcing it to do so. Use the breath, breathing, and shallow living because one breath is life. So if you're only breathing into the ego, if you're only breathing into the
Just
shallowness,
a given love.
giving life, you're not breathing down into depths of your being. You're not breathing all the way into the
Right.
underworld because you see the lower aspects of the body, not lower in position, but lower in value. So therefore, you don't want into them and breathe in those aspects of life because you deem them as being unnecessary survival. You deem them as dirty. We've as a society to look at sex and sexuality a certain way, but that's where the breath naturally goes. It naturally goes directly into the sexual center.
Mm-hmm.
The deeper into the abdomen that the breath goes with and activates the sexual center. You breathe into the diaphragm. You breathe into the stomach, the navel, the womb. That's where the breath naturally goes. Yes, as a society, have suppressed the divine feminine. We have oppressed the divine feminine. We have depressed the divine feminine. Region of our body and activate that region of our body and give it back the life that it deserves. We're scared to breathe into the and reawaken Sekhmet because we know Sekhmet is the destroyer. Sekhmet's the one to obliterate this reality and bring us back to our true reality. The reality is beyond breathe, that exists beyond breath. All right. So boom, this is ultimately talking about. Breath is the vital force moving from above downwards. Where do you breathe from? Your nose. Your nose is up here. It's
Mm-hmm.
above the heart. The heart is the energetic balancing point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, the or let me just say it's the middle of the seven chakras. You have the lower three, you have the upper three. The heart would play that center role,
Right.
right? You're breathing from here. This is between the throat, third eye, the nose. You're breathing right here. This energy comes in, it goes down into lower chakras. It goes down into the centers, right? Sexuality, vital, moving from below upwards because Kundalini is up,
Mm-hmm.
right? She starts in the and then works her way up into the regions, exiting the body through the third eye. All right. So the breath comes from right here and goes down. Kundalini starts down here, goes up. When they meet, they create energy necessary for life. Because ultimately, when the breath stops, the heart stops, the body's done. The air feeds fire that is within the, it gives oxygen to the blood, and then that oxygen is carried by the blood to all of other parts of the body by way of the heart pumping it. All right. This is what we're dealing with. This is what we're trying to tap into because ultimately we cannot consciously change a heartbeat unless through the breath.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The reason why I breathe deep into the womb because ultimately you live in fear. Breathing shallow, you don't actually have to deal with any of the fear that you feel. You don't have to deal with any of your emotions on their deepest level. You're not breathing into the space where those emotions come from. That energy actually rises out of. The sexual energy is the force. It is the emotional body. It is the feminine. We're not giving life to the divine feminine. We're too busy trying to be in mind. So we breathe as close to our mind as we can. We breathe as close to our head as we can, which is our chest. We pretty much keep our breath in our throat, right? Civilization has trained itself to be afraid of sexuality and sensuality. So we don't feed the navel center with the energy that it needs, which is breath. The sexual force, breath. because once again, Kundalini is a sexual fire, right? So there is the fire of spirit, fire that exists within the breath, but ultimately that fire feeds the sexual creative fire, the divine feminine. When they unify, they create energy that keeps the. You see what I'm saying? This is why you don't breathe. On the next level, if you were to breathe all the way down there, you would give and more intensity to all of the different emotions that you feel. Stir the waters even more. You would churn this ocean, this sea of chi that's in the stomach, the lower dantian. All right, stir it up, and you actually have to deal with all the emotions that you feel.
Mm-hmm.
You'd actually have to deal with this society programs you to live in fear all the time, and you're doing your best to just stay above for actually your fears. This is why you don't breathe deeply. You're never actually facing your sadness. You're not actually facing any of the traumas that exist within these lower centers. All the traumas that exist towards your sexuality, you're never facing them. You're never dealing with them. Not at their intensity, just at the surface. Whereas if you were to actually breathe into them all the way, you'd be able to get into the deepest unconscious aspects of what creates them, reprogram the shit, release it with you inhale good shit, exhale the bullshit. But you're not breathing deep enough to actually stir these waters up to create that necessary. You're not heating up the ocean. You're not bringing the fire to the ocean to boil it, to purify the water, to purify the energy. This is what the technique is all about. All right. All understand that biologically speaking, breath feeds the blood and thus is intimately connected with the heart center. Not just the physical heartbeat, but the actual pulse, the creative impulse, magic, heka,
Mm-hmm.
the creative impulse of the universe is what feeds. The breath is what feeds that. Magic is in the wind, which is why Tahuti and Ma'at, two bird creatures, are the ones that ultimately dispel magic of humanity or the knowledge of transmutation to humanity. This is why they weigh your heart ultimately, because they want to see how in tune your heart is with the spirit, which is why they weigh it against the feather, a symbol of the breath. If you're not breathing deeply, then ultimately you're not empowering the heart. You're not empowering that fire, that creative energy that actually is your soul. So it's heavy, it's dense, it's not able to lift itself up with grace because there's not enough wind to do so. The wind is under the heart, lifting it up. The wind is on top of the heart, pushing it down. Now you're in a grave. This is what we're dealing with. So the navel slash abdomen is the center. That's all it is. I'm not telling you to slow down. It just says breathe deeper. That's it. You'll naturally do that when you fuck with the techniques you don't consciously try. Yoga will tell you to breathe. It also tell you when to release breath, and so it's gonna keep this in your conscious mind. Whereas Tantra is just as simple as lay down. Shiva has to do just lays down and breathes until he blacks out, until he fully becomes engulfed by his unconscious mind. How do I know? Nigga, I've done it. I've been there, and it is a wild thing, right? I've literally laid down, put my hand up on my heart, same way Asar crosses his hands over his heart, right? Under forever bet. I do that, and I lay there, and I just breathe. I do my best. Do anything at all. Stay there, and I breathe. I can't even tell you when it happens. Literally, you just disappear. And literally, and this really feels, it feels blinking, word is born. It really does feel like blinking. So I'm glad you brought that up because literally, you'll be here, you'll be here 1 second, and then boom, you're gone, and then boom, you're back away. But it's like 2 hours later. It's just like that. Literally, there's nothing in
No
between.
dreams.
No dreams, no thoughts, no feelings, no desires, nothing. 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 And it's for rest because all of the energy is essential. You're not looking for anything. You're not energy to be kinetic. You're not thinking or doing. You're just
Perfect time
being.
to play frequencies.
It's the perfect time to play. All of that shit sinks deep. I used to do this shit to frequencies. That was how I opened this doorway up because I physical things about Saturn and Saturn's connections to silence and all that different shit kabbalistically. So I use Saturn frequencies to do so. But literally, it feels like coming back. There have been a couple times where I've done it and I scared the shit out of my when I woke up. Literally, I woke up like, oh shit, because it really like, oh shit, I was just dead and I came back. It literally feels like that. Like, dog, there was so peep in those movies where people go to the other side and they come back. There's nothing, nothing there. Exactly, nothing.
Well, it's because they can't see in the dark. That's why they were scared.
And this is all right. Boom. And this is. I'm glad you brought that up because after a while of doing these meditations, these deep state trance meditation, there was there was a time where I actually saw myself walk the darkness. It wasn't full body, but I literally saw this thing walk at the darkness. Boom! I was just back in my body, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
But that goes back to what we said earlier. I was like, oh no, you can be like passed out, but still.
Boom!
But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's a different type of consciousness.
Boom!
That same
All right,
one
because
is
then this is where we now have to bring in the different um waves brain state activity. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? So that's when we get into beta state being your wakeful mind. You're in beta state right now looking at me.
you're conscious.
You're conscious. You're awake. You're alive. You see what I'm saying? Alpha state is usually when we go to meditate.
Ironically.
You see what I'm saying? The beta state, the second,
Yeah.
is your
I
conscious
always thought it
mind.
was
But the
strange.
alpha state is where you go to,
They're telling you right there.
they're telling you right there. Alpha state is where you go to meditate. So it's a subconscious state. It's just below consciousness.
Yeah.
You can easily be woken up. You see what I'm saying? You can easily be back to beta state, but you're definitely below beta state,
Right.
right?
You're not in full theta.
You're not in full theta though. Theta is where you sleep and where you dream,
Yeah.
right? Theta is where you sleep and where you
You
dream.
can like start. You can have you can be.
Dreaming happens
Yeah.
here.
You can be conscious in theta state. Like,
Yeah, you can be. Yeah, because that. All right, boom.
and
You're literally
start.
a conscious mind.
Yeah.
You see? Whereas beta state is awake in the consciousness. Alpha state is kind of that in between, on the limbo state between
Theta is
being
where you
awake and
have
being asleep.
visions.
Where you have visions, this is where you have dreams. This is where daydream. Nah, nah, nah. Daydreaming is alpha.
Unless you can daydream and drop yourself into theta.
Boom. All right, and this. All
I
right.
can't do that because that's
Nah, yeah,
extremely
yeah, yeah,
advanced.
nah. I'm glad you corrected me on that one. So beta state, you're awake, you're alive, you're conscious, you're doing this shit. Alpha state, you're meditating. This is you dream at. If we're to give that,
That's like the word.
this is where you
That's
daydream.
like this trance.
It's in between being awake and being asleep. Theta state is where you're sleeping, but where you're dreaming. So you're in the subconscious mind. You know what I'm saying? Delta state. Now, peep that name, Delta state, because Delta is where change and transformation happens. Delta is the state where you're sleeping but no dreaming, pure unconsciousness.
Those are the other.
This is the state that's called Delta. This is where you change shit when you're and nothing's going on, dreamless. So there's literally nothing to see, nothing to do.
So that's a perfect time to do like the frequencies.
Because this is when the most change happens in the psyche. This is where. So this is what we're ultimately dealing with we're dealing with the states of consciousness that Tantra is seeking to into. It's seeking you out of beta and gamma. Gamma is hyperactivity, which is where most of us are actually at. Beta state is like when you first wake up and you're chilling. Once you start moving around and doing a bunch of shit and thinking about a bunch of shit, you're in gamma. All right. Tantra is about getting you out of beta and gamma state into alpha state, then into theta state, then into ultimately delta state, because that's where all the change and transformation actually happens. But that's an unconscious state. So the only real way to change conscious reality is by going into the unconscious foundations of reality and changing it there. But you're not breathing deep to actually get there. You're not focused consciously enough on the breath to tap into native awareness. Trust me, I've been there. The shit feels like that because nothing's going on. So when you actually come back to your body, whenever you get kicked out of that being, you see what I'm saying? Because of course you do have to come back, right? Whenever you come back to your body, this shit, it scares the shit. It's gonna out of you. You're gonna come back with a, because it's almost like your breath was paused. It's almost like you weren't breathing for an hour, and you just come back and just like, oh, shit, where was I just now? What was that? It was nothing. I don't need it is because your conscious mind is not designed to go there. It doesn't look like anything to me. That's what we're dealing with, all right? So the navel or the abdomen, the sacral chakra, the womb, right? The belly, which is exactly what womb means etymologically, just belly, right? Is the centering point of the breath and thus the center of our being. Kundalini, the sexual energy. That's where most of our consciousness is. There is the one that is the sun, the true consciousness, the soul, not the ego. That is the false light. That is the body. All right. That is the shallow breath. All right. So shallow is because we are ultimately afraid to touch and live from the center, afraid to live from the sexual center. We've been trained against living from the sexual center because that's what society ultimately does not want you to be in tune with your actual core essence. It would make you too spontaneous. It would make you too chaotic. It'd make you really hard to control. That's why they want you in your chest, because chest is already confined. It's literally a cage. It's already confined. So when you breathe your chest, you're a lot easier to program. You're a lot easier to control on that level. You start breathing down into root center, you become too spontaneous, moving on your own accord. You start moving by the beat of your own drum. The breath helps you get in tune with the heart, that which is constantly beating, your personal. That's why Shiva carries around his own drum. He's moving to the beat of his own drum. He's spontaneous, chaotic. He's a manifestation of that chaotic ocean of emotion, the sea that's always moving, always shifting. It is the stillness, but it's chaos. It's matter of fact, it's Akbal, the Mayan day sign Akbal, the stillness that is dancing. The movement not moving. It appears nothing is done, but ultimately everything is. We assume zero is no thing, but actually zero is everything because everything comes out of zero. All of the numbers are born out of the womb of zero.
It's not just a placeholder.
Boom. Zero is the total circle. It's the full cipher. It's the total encompassment of all consciousness into a state that is beyond anything and everything, which is no thing at all. That's what you have to understand. Once again, if you understand this intellectually, you're going to miss it. This is why you just got to practice the breathing technique. This is why you have to use those visualizations so that way you can what it is that's going on. Once you have the feeling, there is no longer any visualization. You don't need to bring it into the light because it's already a part of your awareness on that deeper level. So all you have to do is be it. All right? That's what we're talking about. So, all right, we don't want to live or touch this center. We don't want to live from it. We don't want to touch it. We don't want to be aware of it. Why? Because we become a total being. We become totally aware of everything that we feel, that we think, that we know. That hard to control. Because if you really knew who the fuck you were, and you really knew where the fuck you were, and you wouldn't want to play this game anymore. You wait a minute. You mean I'm here on this earth in this damn cage, just you, president, just like you, Pope, and I'm supposed to bow to your? You just as human, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
But when you breathe into the rib cage, when you breathe shallow, you think that we're all the same, or not even all the same, actually. On one level, yeah, you think we're all the same, and you don't actually know
You
of your
think
own being.
you think that life stops right here in
Boom,
the
you
shallow.
think it's all of that thing.
When you see someone who is in a body, like the Pope and the President,
You
you see them in a position of power because they've gotten deeper, but you think they are different than you.
there we go. That's what I'm trying
They're
to say
not more
actually.
powerful than you. They're just tapped into something deeper than you are.
Or than what you're tapped into.
So when you're stuck,
But
you
when you
think that
exactly
you
all
think
you
that
see is
like the
at the
Pope is
surface, the
special.
10%.
The Pope isn't special.
The Pope isn't special. You see what I'm
The
saying?
only thing
Because
that's
to go
awareness.
below the surface, if you were to go below the surface, you'd realize, oh shit, I have that too.
Mm-hmm. So
What he has, I got. So therefore, I don't need to look to you for it. I can just look to myself for it because on the unconscious level, all of this shit's unified. All of this shit's one. It's all alone, all one. So I have that power too. But you're too shallow to notice that. At the surface level, you're only giving conscious awareness. You're only giving to that which is at the surface. So when someone else's tip of the iceberg appears to be larger than your tip of the iceberg, you believe that instead of realizing and saying, "Hey, yo, I'm way bigger than you under the surface."
you're stuck thinking that less fish in
Exactly.
the ocean.
So breathing deeply from this space,
I'm gonna go listen to
breathing
your
deeply
album.
from the sexual center would ultimately make you totally aware of yourself, thus making you claim the maximum intensity of all your feelings, thus making you claim the maximum intensity of all your knowledge, thus making you claim the maximum intensity of all your power, which would then make you claim the maximum intensity of all of responsibility. Because with great power comes great responsibility. You don't want to be responsible for any of that. You don't want to accept that you're the one that caused this state of suffering, this state of desire, this state of survival. You don't want to accept that. So by breathing on the shallow level, you don't have to accept, you have to take ownership of that. This is the iceberg of awareness. By only acknowledging what is at the surface, you have no reason to acknowledge anything that's of a deeper nature. Right? Understand that children naturally breathe from this space. So that means that when they're mad, they are totally mad. When they're happy, they are totally happy. When they are sad, they are totally sad. Limit these things. They do not try to control and confine these things within acceptable bounds. They don't cage themselves up. They allow themselves to be as free as their breath is. They allow themselves to go with the wind. They're spontaneous. Kids say the darndest things because they have not been programmed to control themselves. They have not been to limit themselves. They have not been programmed to limit their awareness, their power. This is the issue. We do not the abdomen because we do not breathe all the way down into the sexual center. We ultimately do not know where our center is. We are constantly off center. We are constantly out of pocket. We are constantly the ones doing the most. thinking the most instead of being the most. This is the issue. Breath is the bridge between the higher self and the body. Well, sorry. I already gave y'all a warning about this allergy. All right, so breath is the bridge between the higher self and the body. We are aware of the breath moving in and out of the body. Thus, we are aware of the body, barely, but we are unaware of the point in which the inhale and the exhale feeds and become where all is one, where it's all alone, where we are all alone. The soul, the true light, the one that it's hidden by itself in darkness, the one that is the totality, all experience of all time, that which is eternally present. The soul is the only real thing because it is eternally present. Every transitory, temporary, it fades in and out. But without the soul, none of this shit could exist. So it is just as true, it's just not real. You see what I'm saying? It's just as true, it's just not real. This is what we have to understand. Aware of this point where the breath, where the inhale and one. We are aware of the periphery, we're aware of the body, we're of the tire reality. We're aware of all the shallow shit. We are conscious of all the shallow shit. Personally and as a society, we're aware of the uppermost level of the ocean, right? But we are unaware of all of this shit together. We are unaware of what is deeper than reality or the apparent reality. All right. So we're trying to come into an understanding of these tantric breathing techniques, right? So let me go back and really reread this shit and explain to you all of the parts that were touched within this particular tutorial. Let me go back. Let me go back. Give me a second. All right. So, radiant one. This experience may dawn between two breaths, the inhale and the exhale. After breath comes in and down, after you inhale, right after you inhale, and you bring that in, and just before turning up and out, just before exhale, notice that center. That is the beneficence. That is the power. That is the glory. That space in between breaths, that space that is in between birth and death, or a death and rebirth, right? That space that is in between the two, that space that trans the two, the space that is beyond the two, the space that is ever present regardless of what goes on in between. That is the power. That is what we become aware of technique. So between two breaths, after the breath comes in and just before turning, that is. So you want to follow the entire process. Don't seek the gap between breaths, and that pushes it into the future. That gap breaths already exists. So you're going to have to be present with the breath in order to notice it, in order to notice where that is coming from and where it is going. All right. Number two, as breath turns from down to up, and again as breath curves from up to down, through both these realize, understand that if we are turning breath, if the inhale is another half and the exhale is another half, what are we turning in? What is allowing us to turn? What is allowing us to create this shift inhale and the exhale, and then between the exhale and the inhale. What is allowing us to create this shift? Obviously, there is an implied neutral state in between two that allows us to make the shift. The same way that there is an implied neutral state going on when we shift gears in a car. You don't just jump from first to second. You see what I'm saying? Grind the gears. You'll fuck up the transmission that way. You shift out of first intro, and then you shift into second. Shift into a neutral and then into third, and then third into a neutral and then into. This is what allows the shifting to happen. It's this neutral state. If we put the car into that neutral state, the engine would get hot, but nothing would happen. Nothing would change. It is only once we put it in first the motion happens. Once we put it back into that state, the motion will slow down until it reaches a stop. All right? That on that regard. So this is what we have to realize, that the second aspect is not just noticing the um allows us to shift and turn into a new breath. This space that creates death and right? This is the that allows us from inhale to exhale and from exhale to inhale. This is the point that the breath is from coming toward the body from the universe and coming from the body toward the universe. It comes in, shifts, and then it goes back out. And then again, it comes back in. This is the point that we're trying to understand and really become aware of within our kind, right? The ego is not what's trying to understand this. The ego can't understand this. The ego does not exist beyond death. We're trying to get the real consciousness, the real conscious mind, the soul, to become aware of these things. So that will back into that power. All right. So that's the second technique. As breath turns from up, as breath turns from down to up, and again as breath from up to down through these turns, realize. So the first technique is about notice that gap between breath, that gap between death and rebirth. The second technique is about understanding that it is this neutral space where breath is not moving either out or in, that allows for us to shift between moving the breath in. All right. This middle gear, neutral gear that we have to shift through in order for the breath to touch the body and in order for the breath to touch the universe. This is that neutral state. Number three, whenever in breath and out breath fuse, this is the instant. Oh, wait, whenever in breath and out breath fuse at this instant, touch the energy filled center. Once you begin to really focus on the breath and you begin to notice this gap, you'll begin to notice where the gap is located. The gap is located in the abdomen. The breath goes to the womb and then from there leaves it. All right. Understand that the breath is all touching the center. When it comes toward the center, it touches it. As it leaves from this, it is touching it. It is removing the touch, which is still touching because you feel that removing. You see what I'm saying? Just the same way that you feel it coming in and actually touching it and interacting with it. This is the energyless, energy filled center because, of course, the physical body is a vehicle. Just like a car runs on gas, the physical body on food and water. That's why the opening of the mouth ceremony, part of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, where they give food and drink to the body of the dead by opening the mouth. Body. All right. The one actually controlling the vehicle operates on a different form of energy, on a different form of fuel. Way you don't drink gasoline, this is the same way your soul does not on food, water. All right, we're back. It's fine. Don't worry about it. All right. So, like I was saying, whenever the in breath and out at this instant touch, this energy field center. So that the navel point is the center. The sexual energy is naturally where the breath draws to, right? And where it moves away from. This is where it's going, the sexual center. This is our real center. Understand that this breathing on a biological level is what gives life to the blood so that way the blood can deliver life to the rest of the body. Then through the blood gives that breath back so that way the death expelled from the body. So understand that the breath is innately connected with the heart. The heart is the center of the energetic system, of the chakra system. But all of the chakras are threaded along the kundalini, which is the sexual serpent, which is exactly where your breath goes. This is what the breath is going to activate. Trained to breathe shallow. You've been trained to breathe in the chest. The chest is confined. It is within a cage, the rib cage, whereas the abdomen can freely contract and expand as it will. So understand that when you breathe from the chest, easier to control, you are easier to confine. That's ultimately what the person and the ego is all about. Awareness. If you want to step out of the ego, step out of limited awareness, step out of the persona, you'd have to breathe deeper into that sexual center, because ultimately sex is the prana force. Sex is that exists at all levels of reality and animates life, right? Breath is what brings us in contact with that. You can't consciously control heartbeat, consciously control your breathing, which means breathing is an aspect of the subconscious mind, and the heart is an aspect of the unconscious mind. You're completely unconscious of this shit unless you're gonna go through the breath, unless you're gonna go through the unconscious or the subconscious to the unconscious. This is what we have to understand next. All right. So there's that. Like I said, the energy bliss because it does not give to the body. The body runs on a different type of fuel, but it is energy filled because this is primordial creative essence that creates the entire universe. So it may not be energy for the body, but it's a source of energy creation. All right. Well, the sexual center, the kundalini, is the one that rises the sun, the hearth, that is given birth to of that unconscious mind. Beat. All right. That is the mother kundalini raises the Christ. And anytime you see a depiction of Jesus, what do you see? You see him pointing to his flaming heart because he is the Son of God. Boom. That's the third technique. The fourth, when breath is all out and of itself, or all in and stopped of itself, such universal laws, one small cell vanishes. Understand that this vanishes because the ego is a mechanism of self-preservation, of survival, of desire within the body. Once you stop breathing, you're no longer the body. The small cell has to vanish because you're no longer connected to the body. Small self connected to the real you. In these moments, when the breath is paused, when it is all in or it's all out, when it is total, right? It is zero. Zero is the sum of everything. Everything equals to nothing. That's what this shit all goes back to, right? We are able to tap into our true awareness. This is difficult for the impure, because the impure never notices pauses. All right. The pure you, the real you, always in these moments. The impure, it is limited. It is not the total being. So thus it cannot see what's going on in these other pauses. But the real you is the one that occupies those pauses. The ego occupies the inhale and the exhale. It only lives as long as the inhale and the exhale. What that is, that's what we're trying to tap into. Like I said, do the exercise and it will begin to make sense. The reason why all of it makes sense to me might not make sense to you is because I've done the exercise and I felt this reality. Felt this of state of awareness. The mind completely vanishes and there's nothing. It's just total rest and peace. But that is the delta wave state of brain function. It's called delta because obviously they know it is unconscious mind that you make real conscious changes. This is the ultimate state of transformation. Impure ego, the false light, cannot go there because real you occupies that entire space. It is one with that space. That's why it appears as nothing. But that is ultimate reality that Shiva lives in. This is what we're trying to find within ourselves, the ultimate state of consciousness, which is beyond forms of consciousness. This is what the technique is about. Do the technique, and it'll become very simple. Focus on the, which means you're never gonna attain. It's gonna move it away from you, and you're never gonna attain it. You're never gonna be the space. You're always gonna be looking for the space. Be your breath. Be one with your a space in between. This will become impossible to notice. That's what we're dealing with here. Tantric techniques. This is just mastering the breath and the breath as a bridge to the universe, to your spiritual body, to your real self, to your soul. Right? This is what we're getting to. This is what we're doing. Time for my niggas, two time for my nagas. Do you feel like that was good enough? Explain we're already like, yeah, explains all of it.
You can't, because like you said, you have to do it.
You have to do the technique.
You'll end up talking in circles if you keep trying to explain it to them.
Exactly. This is what it looks like to try to intimately explain Tantra, just talking in circles all day.
Yeah, you just gotta do it.
Just do it. Just do it like Nike and you'll get it. You know what I'm saying? Well, all right, when Nike in Greek means victory, just do it and you'll get the victory. You see what I'm saying? So one time for my niggas, two times for my niggas. That's it. Like I said, it's in between two breaths. Once you notice the two breaths and you understand that that space between two breaths is what allows you to make the turn from inhale to exhale, from exhale to inhale, right? And then from that point, you understand that this that breath goes when it is not moving in or out is the center, that your sexual center, that is in your navel, that is the center of your being. Naturally breathe deeper into that part of yourself and give that part of you more life. Once you begin to deeper into that center, the small you vanishes and you begin to live as your real being. Not as your real doing, not as your real thinking, the ego does. You'll live in your soul. The ego has to think and do because it knows not and it is not. The soul does not think and do because it knows and it is. That's what this whole technique is about realizing. But it is through the breath that we're going to come to understand this. You don't have to change breathing. You don't have to practice fancy breathing. Just technique of being consciously aware of all the aspects of your breathing is going to make you breathe deeper, naturally.
Practice being your natural self.
Practice being aware of your natural practicing.
Trying to be something.
Yeah.
Niggas are trying to be something they aren't.
Too many niggas are focused on trying to fit in. Too many niggas are focused on trying to make a way, trying to do things, trying to be, just be with the breath, and you'll connect to the universe. That is it. So peace.